Good evening, everybody. Sorry for keeping you waiting. I request someone from AKS to enable screen sharing for me.
Sure.
Okay. So let's begin the class. Yesterday, we started covering, current affairs of the second week. That was from 10th of September to 16th of September. I hope you got the last week's PDF. Now, EWS quota, there are 3 questions which need to be addressed for EWS quota, where we are checking. Basically, the Chief Justice of India wants to check the constitutionality or legality of the 103rd Constitutional Amendment Act. He wants to check whether the 103rd Constitutional Amendment Act is violating the basic structure of the Constitution or not. These are the 3 questions which will be under debate. Then Operation London Bridge. London Bridge is down is a code phrase which is used when the Queen Elizabeth dies, and it is basically a detailed plan which becomes active as soon as she dies, and it is active till the date of her funeral. Official mourning is also included in it. Basically 10 days of official mourning was there. That is Operation London Bridge. If she would have died in Scotland, it would have been Operation Unicorn. Then Operation Springtide was the operation launched for accession of King Charles III to the throne and his first trip to the countries of UK. There are 4 member countries of UK, which we discussed: England, Wales, Northern Ireland, and the 4th one, Scotland. The concept of Commonwealth, such countries which were once under the control of Britishers or were the colonies of Britishers. Commonwealth realms are those countries whose head of the state still is the monarch of UK. Then there are 36 republics also in Commonwealth, and 5 are still monarchies. They are the different monarchs. India-China troops disengagement. The troops disengage themselves from the Gogra post, Petrol Point 15. Why did they engage themselves over there? Because in 2020, there was this construction of road by India, which was opposed by China, and both the armies clashed with each other. Now they stationed themselves in front of each other's, and now they've tried to disengage. There is still one area left which is a major point in concern, and that is the Depsang Plains. Here is the Depsang Plains map, where Chinese have stationed themselves inside the LAC. The last piece of news which we covered was PM TB Mukt Bharat. We want to remove or eradicate TB from India. The Sustainable Development Goal target is 2030, but we have set a target for ourselves, that is 2025. Okay. India is such a country where largest number of deaths happening from other infectious diseases happens from TB. 25% of the world patients of TB are in India. How is TB spread, or what is TB? First of all, it is a bacterial disease spread by a bacteria called as Mycobacterium tuberculosis. Tuberculosis symptoms are these. How it is spread? It is spread like this, in close contact if you come. Now, we begin with today's section, that is export ban on broken rice. Okay. Now, in Hindi, generally, we call broken rice as chawal ka tukda. Okay. And it is this small in size. It is broken. You can see from the image. Okay. Now, largely, it is cheap in pricing, and it is not used for human consumption largely. It is used for consumption of the feedstock. Feedstock means the cattle which the farmers own. Okay. Animal feedstock. It is used in the poultry industry. Okay. And it is also used to produce ethanol for successful implementation of EBP. EBP is Ethanol Blending Program. Now, first of all, it is used as a food for poultry industry and other feedstock. And what is this EBP, Ethanol Blending Program? Actually, Government of India is trying to, launch a program called as Ethanol Blending Program, in which the government wants to blend, means mix 20% ethanol and 80% petrol. Now, presently, what you get is you get 100% petrol. But we have this target that by 2025, we want to achieve this. That in 1 liter of petrol, 20 ml will be ethanol, and 20% will be ethanol, 200 ml, and 800 ml will be petrol. This will reduce, if this happens, this will reduce our dependence on petrol, or this will reduce our imports of petrol. Secondly, it is also clean. If this fuel is used, it is clean comparatively to other fuels. Okay. This type of fuel is also called as E20. Means ethanol is 20% in the petrol. So we have this target E20. By 2025, we have to achieve this. And for this purpose, a lot of ethanol plants and all are being inaugurated in India. Recently, I mean not recently, but in August, September only, there was this ethanol plant which was inaugurated by PM Modi in the city Panipat in Haryana. Now, what will it do? It will take the rice straws, which is of the rice which are grown in Punjab and Haryana. It will process it and it will convert it into ethanol. Earlier, those rice straws were burnt by the farmers in Punjab and Haryana, which caused a lot of air pollution problems in Delhi NCR region post Diwali, or in and around Diwali. Okay. So that problem will be tackled. Ethanol will be produced. Petrol consumption will be less. So there, broken rice is used. Now, 50 to 60 lakh metric tons of broken rice is produced annually in India, which is mainly used as poultry feed and feed for other animals. It is also used as a feedstock by grain-based distilleries for producing ethanol, which is supplied to OMCs, oil marketing companies, for blending with petrol. So what UPSC can do, UPSC can play smart over here. UPSC can ask you, which of the following are applications of rice? First point, it can give you human consumption. Yes, it is true. Second, it can give you, animal consumption. Animals do consume, feedstock do consume. Yes, a variety of rice, that is broken rice, is consumed by the animals, feedstock, which we've already learned. Ethanol production. You can use for ethanol production as well. You know this now. Now, which varieties? Now, there is this export ban on the broken rice. It cannot be exported, because government felt that consumption by the domestic industry and the amount required for producing ethanol should be used here only. Now, rice exports from India, what kind of varieties of rice gets exported from India? Actually, there were 4 varieties of rice which got exported from India. Now there is a ban on this broken rice and another variety of rice. We'll see. There are four categories of rice exports from India. First is the basmati rice. It is this long. Its smell is also nice, and yes, it is supplied all over the world. Next is parboiled non-basmati rice. These two are still freely allowed. Exports of these two varieties are allowed. Parboiled non-basmati rice are basically that kind of rice which are cultivated, which are then boiled, not boiled, but washed and then steamed. Okay. After getting steamed, it is again washed. It turns the seed or that particular rice grain hard because of that process. That is why it is called as parboiled non-basmati rice. Okay. The curves are only for other two categories. First is raw white rice and broken non-basmati rice. Our news piece was related to the broken non-basmati rice. Now, next piece of news, very, very important, Indo-Pacific Economic Framework. Okay. Now, in last class, I think yesterday only, I told you the concept of Indo-Pacific. Indo-Pacific is basically Indian Ocean plus Pacific Ocean. Now, if you see the Indian Ocean extends up to Africa, the eastern coast of Africa. Indian Ocean touches over there, and it ends somewhere in, the Middle East Asia. Okay. From there, the Pacific Ocean starts, or you can say that Japan, it ends somewhere in near Japan, and from there, the Pacific Ocean starts. The Pacific Ocean ends on the western coast of North America, South America. This is the Pacific Ocean. A combination of Indian Ocean and Pacific Ocean, this region is called as Indo-Pacific. Now, this region is very important. It contains 64% of the world's population, 60% of the global GDP is produced in this region. And, there are multiple important and big countries located in this region, Indo-Pacific. That is why this has been gaining traction, this theme of Indo-Pacific. And UPSC, since the last 2-3 years, has been asking questions based around Indo-Pacific in the mains. This year, although there was not there, the question was not there, but last year, last to last year, before that year, questions based on this theme were there. India has for now opted to stay out of the Indo-Pacific Economic Framework's trade pillar. Now, what has happened in this region, Indo-Pacific region, 14 countries, they have come together and they have formed this economic framework. Now, what is this economic framework? Economic framework basically is a unique agreement or people are calling it unique trade agreement, which will facilitate trade and increase, its aim is to increase trade all over the Indo-Pacific. Now, why it is unique? Because this kind of trade agreement is being signed for the very first time. Okay. This particular agreement has 4 pillars. The first pillar is fair and resilient trade. The second is supply chain resilience. The third is infrastructure and decarbonization. And the fourth is tax and anti-corruption. The countries in the Indo-Pacific region, these countries will collaborate on all these 4 pillars to strengthen their partnership, to increase trade and do activities with respect to this. And it is up to the countries that whichever pillar they want to be part of, they can. If they do not want to be part of any particular pillar, they can opt out of it as well. And this is the news that India has for now opted to stay out of the Indo-Pacific economics framework's trade pillar, means the first pillar. India has opted to stay out of it. The rest three, India is opting for it. Supply chain resilience. What is supply chain? Can anybody tell me what is supply chain? Not a difficult question at all. No one in the class wants to answer this supply chain? Okay. Basically, it is activities involved in producing some product. That is manufacturing chain. It is the next step. That is activities involved in supplying the products manufactured from one place to the other place. The logistics, the transportation involved. That is supply chain. And we want to make the supply chains resilient of any shocks. Because when the COVID-19 struck us, the supply chain, the global supply chain was one sector which was severely impacted. And since then, countries have started talking about supply chain resilience. There's an index also which has been designed, that is supply chain resilience index. So the countries in this region are collaborating on supply chain resilience so that when such a kind of shock comes or any shock happens in the future, the supply chain remains resilient, the trade remains resilient. Okay. Infrastructure and decarbonization. It is basically related to sustainable infrastructure, creation of infrastructure, along with decarbonizing efforts. Means you have to suck in carbon, you have to increase carbon sinks as well. And last is tax and anti-corruption. Taxes means double taxes and all are applied or levied on various products. So to reduce or to streamline them and make such laws which will promote anti-corruption. Now, according to an insight paper on IPEF by US Congressional Research Service, IPEF is not a traditional trade agreement. In a traditional trade agreement, you just talk about reducing the tariffs. Here, you're not talking about reducing the tariffs only. You are talking about these four pillars, and you are giving the option to the countries that whether you want to opt out of any pillar, you can opt out. You want to opt out of three, you opt out of three, you choose one only. But India has opted out of one and chosen three. Can anybody think of the reasons that why did India opt out of this fair and resilient trade pillar? Why?
Fair and resilient trade involves it's kind of free trade agreement. In that case, our manufacturing sector will get exposed. Like we'll not be able to develop, which we are doing right now, if we keep exporting.
So why do you think that our manufacturing sector will not be able to develop? You are going in the right direction, but you need to know this also, that why our manufacturing sector will not be able to develop if we open our market or if we sign this pillar.
The other member countries may dump their goods in our country. We'll not be able to produce. Like our service sector is good right now, but manufacturing sector, we are still improving.
So manufacturing, we are producing goods, but we are producing goods which are comparatively expensive. They can be cheaper. The other countries have achieved that level that they are producing the same goods at a cheaper prices.
Yes.
So our country will be flooded with those goods, and our domestic industries will not be able to develop because people here in India will run after the imported goods because they are cheap,
Yes.
and our domestic industries or our domestic manufacturing sector will not be able to grow. It is not in the interest of our manufacturing sector because India is fearful of getting dumped with a lot of cheap products. Okay. So this is the major reason why India has opted out of fair and resilient trade pillar. Okay. Now, if I talk about this Indo-Pacific economic framework and the concept of Indo-Pacific, basically, this concept of Indo-Pacific is at times interpreted in a different way. Actually, China claims that this Indo-Pacific concept is a concept which is made to counter them, to stop their resurgence. Okay. And the same is also believed by Russia. Russia believes that Indo-Pacific is a misconstruct. Indo-Pacific is a misconstruct just to contain the rise of China. And this Russia has clearly stated. And I think in 2018, PM Modi was visiting Russia, and there he purposely delivered a speech. And in that speech, he mentioned that what does Indo-Pacific mean and what is Quad. Quad is also an organization in this region. So he clearly reiterated that Indo-Pacific basically is standing for free and open trade, free and open region, free from dominance of any country. And obviously, the hint was towards China. Okay. But largely speaking, yes, Chinese are in a way thinking in the right direction because many activities in the region are happening which are excluding China. Like, for example, Quad has been formed, China has been excluded, Indo-Pacific Economic Framework has been formed, China has been excluded. Okay. So countries are trying to collaborate with themselves, but you cannot ignore a giant, and a giant like China. You you have a lot of trade with them, including USA. Now I'll show you an slide which is coming, in which I will be discussing about the trade of each and every member of IPEF with China, which will clearly signify that how we are dependent upon China for trade. Now 13 economies and China. Like USA has a trade of $615.2 billion with China. Japan has $372 billion trade. South Korea 241 billion. Vietnam 165 billion. It is a 2021 statistic. India far behind than all these which I discussed. It is $110 billion. Thailand $81 billion. Malaysia $176 billion. Singapore $96.9 billion. Indonesia $124.3 billion. Australia $173 billion. Yesterday we read about this track 1.5 diplomacy with Australia and significance of Australia. Australia wants to diversify its market. Australia wants to, sell more products to India as well and take products from India also. So it wants to reduce it and increase trade from India. Okay. Then Brunei has $1.91 billion. New Zealand has $21 billion trade. Philippines $47 billion. So there are 13 countries. These 13 countries, apart from a small island nation that is Fiji. The data for Fiji was not available. So these are the 14 member countries of IPEC, Indo-Pacific Economic Framework, IPEF, sorry, Indo-Pacific Economic Framework. US, South Korea, Vietnam, India, Thailand, Malaysia, Singapore, Indonesia, Australia, New Zealand, Brunei, Philippines, Japan, Fiji. Okay. So this shows the dependence of countries on China and the desperation of these countries to reduce trade with China. Or to diversify its trade. Now, Origin of IPEF, when IPEF was conceptualized. IPEF was conceptualized in October 2021 in the East Asia Summit. Now there is a task for you guys. You have to find out about East Asia Summit, read about East Asia Summit, and in our next class, that is tomorrow, I'll be asking questions on East Asia Summit. Google it, you'll get the information. At this summit, he said the United States will explore with partners the development of an Indo-Pacific economic framework. This framework will define our shared objectives around trade facilitation, standards for digital economy, we'll be discussing technology, supply chain resiliency, decarbonization and clean energy, infrastructure, worker standards, and other areas of shared interest. So in 2021, it was conceptualized. Now, key features, the fair and resilient trade module will be led by US trade representative. This was also one of the reasons that why India opted out, because US will dominate over here. That fair and resilient trade module will be dominated or led by US trade representative and include digital labor and environmental issues with some binding commitments. So India said that it is better to opt out because here India is violating some laws according to the USA, especially the IPR laws. IPR stands for intellectual property rights. USA believes that India is not following the IPR laws. IPR is basically intellectual property, something basically which you have created using your intellect. Like for example, Microsoft. By using the intellect of Microsoft, Microsoft has created Windows. Okay, but in India, we are getting Microsoft Windows, pirated copies of Microsoft Windows, just like that in every nook and corner of India. So USA says that you are violating the IPR norms. This is just an example which I gave you, Microsoft Windows. There are many things apart from Microsoft Windows which we are doing piracy with. Okay. Certain labor laws in India which are not in tune with the US labor laws. Now, if we would have signed this agreement, then and these were binding in nature, we would have to change, which India did not want. The IPF will not include market access commitments such as lowering tariff barriers, as the agreement is more of an administrative arrangement. It is administrative in nature. So this thing will not be there. Okay. That is why it is called as a unique trade agreement. Member countries and the trade with China, already discussed. India and IPF. India decided to join 3 pillars of IPEF. India has joined the supply chain resilience, decarbonization and infrastructure, and anti-tax and corruption pillars of IPEF. However, it has decided to remain out of the trade pillar. Reasons for India not joining the trade pillar. So far, official reason has not been given, but whatever reasons which we have discussed, trade imbalance, protection of our domestic industry and all, these are some commonsensical reasons which can be taken into consideration. And one such statement was there that the aspects of trade pillars go beyond WTO negotiations. It is a statement given by one of the Indian officials. But largely, these are the reasons only why, India has not joined the 4th pillar. Okay. So important in this news pieces, which are the member countries of IPEF. You should know the 14. How this framework is unique because it is optional in nature. You want to opt out of any pillar, you can opt out. There are 4 pillars. Name of the 4 pillars you should know. Now, the next piece of news is Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Anna Yojana. Now, when I framed this news piece, at that time, the government was thinking on that whether to extend this Yojana or not. But as of now, last week I was reading a news piece that the government has extended this Yojana, this scheme. What is this scheme? Let us look into it. Many states, basically cutting across party lines, means those states in which the BJP government is not there, have asked the central government to extend the Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Anna Yojana scheme beyond September 30, 2022. Actually, this scheme's sixth phase was going on. It began in April 2022 and had to end in September 2022. Now, when the COVID lockdown struck, the government launched this scheme, Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Ann Yojana, in which it was giving 5 kg food grains free to the eligible beneficiaries. This is important. Free it was. Apart from this food grain scheme, there is another scheme which is distributing food grains. Can anybody name that scheme?
The PDS distribution.
PDS distribution, and the name of the law or the scheme which is there is National Food Security.
Okay, yes.
National Food Security Act. Antyodaya Ann Yojana is a part of NFSA.
Yes.
Okay. In National Food Security Act, the eligible beneficiaries get 5 kg of food grains, and if you are taking rice, 3 rupees per kg you get. If you're taking wheat, rupees 2 per kg, and if you are taking coarse cereals, you'll get rupees 1 per kg. Five kg per person. And there is another category defined under NFSA, that is Antyodaya. Antyodaya means poorest of the poor. There you are getting all this, but 35 kg of food grains is entitled to a family per month. Okay. Overall, in NFSA, around 2/3 of India's population is covered. They are entitled for such benefits. 75% of rural population and 50% of urban population is entitled to take food grains at this price. Now, this Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Ann Yojana was over and above this allocation, 5 kg or 35 kg. 5 kg food grains were given free of cost. No 1 rupee kg, 2 rupee kg, 3 rupee kg. And since it was given free of cost, it was a big burden on the exchequer. It was a big burden on the exchequer. And, it was being decided that, or it was being thought upon that whether to continue this scheme or not, because the COVID-19 restrictions have eased down. The life of people have come back on track. What to do? So people were thinking during that time. And, you view this news piece from September's angle, that still they are thinking. Okay, as we progress, I'll tell you what the update in this scheme is. About Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Ann Yojana is a food security welfare scheme announced by the central government in March 2020 during COVID-19 pandemic. It is part of Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan package to help poor fight the battle against COVID. Objective is to feed the poorest citizen of India by providing grain through PDS public distribution system to all priority households, means ration card holders and those identified by the Antyodaya Ann Yojana scheme. Implementing agency of this scheme is Department of Food and Public Distribution, Ministry of Consumer Affairs and Food and Public Distribution. Salient features of the scheme: more than 80 crore beneficiaries are provided 5 kg free wheat, rice per person per month. Here, wheat and rice are only included, no coarse cereals, and they are given free of cost. This is in addition to 5 kg food grains already provided to the beneficiaries under National Food Security Act 2013. Is the NFSA 2013 legally entitled up to 75% of rural population and 50% of urban population to receive subsidized food grains under targeted public distribution system. It is known as the largest food security program in the world, this NFSA. Okay. Achievements. To alleviate the COVID-19 pandemic induced distress, initially, the scheme was announced for a period of 6 months. This Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Ann Yojana, it was announced for only 6 months, that is April to September 2020. However, the scheme was extended several times. The last was the 6th phase, ending in September 2022. But again, the update is that it has been extended for 3 more months. The 7th phase is applicable presently. That has started from October and it will end in December. Okay. The government will take a call in December whether to stop the scheme or not. By September 2022, the total expenditure under Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Ann Yojana was nearly 3.40 lakh crore. And the 7th phase, I was reading, the subsidy burden or the expenditure would be 44,000 crore rupees. So 3,40,000 plus 44,000 crore more, it amounts to 3.84 lakh crore rupees. Okay. The government had allocated about 79 lakh metric tons of food grains, free food grains till March 2022. Okay. Even though the COVID-19 pandemic has significantly abated and economic activities are gathering momentum, PMGKAY extension has ensured that no poor household goes to bed without food during this time of recovery. Now, just want to highlight one report by, I think it was a report by some international organization. Inflation is going around all over the world. The entire world is impacted due to inflation, and inflation is linked with crude oil prices everywhere. So what happens is that prices of all the commodities have gone up all around the world. And when inflation happens, the maximum impact of inflation is on the poor people. Now, the study or the report which I'm talking about, there was a report which stated that how many people have come below poverty line with the impact of inflation. And on India, the impact of inflation was minimal. The reasons were that these particular schemes, National Food Security Act, Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Ann Yojana, which gave food for people to eat. Ample food was available with them. So this is a big achievement for us, a good news for us. And nowadays, scheme implementation is also made effective. Now, the question at that time in September was that should the scheme be extended further or not? Basically, our fiscal deficit is basically the difference between expenditure of the government minus the income of the government. Expenditure, if it is more than the income, then fiscal deficit will happen. And the fiscal deficit of Government of India was pegged at 16.61 lakh crore rupees, and 6.4% deficit was there. In its monthly report, the Department of Expenditure, Ministry of Finance, cited the adverse financial position. They said that we are already running into this much deficit. So we should not continue the scheme. The scheme should not be continued or extended beyond September. This was the recommendation of Department of Expenditure, Ministry of Finance. Ministry of Finance said, or the Department of Expenditure said, that we are running into deficit because of the following factors. The first factor was continuance of Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Ann Yojana. 3.4 lakh crore rupees is not a joke. Then second reason which was cited by Department of Expenditure was huge increase in fertilizer subsidy burden. So fertilizer subsidy burden is also a very important expenditure for the government. Keep this in mind, because in tomorrow's class we are going to deal something with this, or in the next class maybe, fertilizer subsidy. Then reintroduction of subsidy on cooking gas. Again, subsidy, subsidy, subsidy. And last one was reduction of excise duty on petrol and diesel. The first 3 points are related to expenditure. Expenditure is rising. And the fourth point, reduction in excise duty, is with respect to income of the government. The government has increased its expenditure, reduced its income. Obviously, this will widen further the fiscal deficit. So that is why there was this recommendation that you remove this. But the government has decided to continue it for another 3 months. Now, the next piece of news is with respect to inclusion of new tribes in scheduled tribe, the ST list. The Union Cabinet approved addition of 4 tribes in the list of scheduled tribes. Which were these 4 tribes? The Hathi community of Transgiri region of Himachal Pradesh, Nari Koravar and Kuruvikaran from Tamil Nadu, Binjia in Chhattisgarh. Actually, Binjia is a widespread tribe. Binjia was listed as a scheduled tribe in Jharkhand and Odisha. Means those Binjia tribal people who were living in Jharkhand and Odisha already were in ST. But Binjias living in Chhattisgarh were not labeled as ST, but with this notification, they have also been labeled as ST. Binjia in Chhattisgarh. Then Gond community residing in 13 districts of Uttar Pradesh. Now UPSC can check your smartness and ask you questions. Match the following. They'll give you the tribe's name. They'll give you the states on the other side. So you'll have to match the following. So actually, that question will be from current affairs, but most of you will not know, because these are the 4 tribes or tribal communities which have been included in the scheduled tribe list. This is one thing which you need to know. Another thing which you need to know is the procedure for adding or deleting tribes to the scheduled tribe list. Who adds? Now, the ST in India, according to the 2011 census, that is the latest census in place right now, 104 million tribal people are there, representing 8.6% of country's total population. No community has been specified as scheduled tribe in the state of Haryana and Punjab and UTs of Chandigarh, Delhi and Puducherry. Means Haryana, Punjab, Delhi, Chandigarh, Puducherry. No scheduled tribes are there. Government of India has set up Ministry of Tribal Affairs in 1999 to look into the welfare of the tribal people. Earlier, Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment was looking after the empowerment. The list of ST, basically the Article 342 of the Constitution provides for specification of tribal communities or part of or groups within tribes or tribal communities which are deemed to be scheduled tribes. Cutting this statement short, Article 342 will have all the mention of all the scheduled tribes in relation to that particular state or UT. So in pursuance of these provisions, the list of scheduled tribes is notified for each state or union territory. That is why the Binjia tribe has been notified for Chhattisgarh now, and earlier it was labeled as a scheduled tribe in other states. These lists are valid only within the jurisdiction of the state or UT, not outside. A community declared as a scheduled tribe in a state need not be so in another state, like Binjia was not a scheduled tribe in Chhattisgarh. The inclusion of a community as a scheduled tribe is an ongoing process. Inclusion and exclusion keeps on happening. Criteria for inclusion in the list. The criteria presently followed for specification of community as a scheduled tribe Which community can be labeled as a scheduled tribe? If that community indicates primitive traits means age-old traits, distinctive culture is following distinctive culture, geographical isolation it is experiencing, shyness of contact with the community at large, and backwardness. However, these criteria are not spelled out in the constitution. You need to understand this. Constitution does not say that people or communities having these criteria should be labeled as scheduled tribe. These have been, created outside the constitution. Process of inclusion. The process to include tribes in ST begins with recommendations from the state governments. That the state governments will recommend to the central government that we want this particular community to be labeled as scheduled tribes in our state. These recommendations are then sent to Tribal Welfare Affairs Ministry, which reviews and sends it to the Registrar General of India. Just hold on. So the state governments send it to the Tribal Affairs Ministry. The Tribal Affairs Ministry sends it to the Registrar General of India. The Registrar General of India sends it to National Commission for Scheduled Tribes. It is a constitutional body before finally sending it to the Cabinet. Cabinet takes the final decision and gives it to the President. Because in Article 342, it is written, the President is empowered to add or subtract any community from the scheduled tribe list. And this is the procedure followed. State governments, Tribal Affairs Ministry, to Registrar General of India, to NCST, National Commission for Scheduled Tribes, to Cabinet, and to President, finally. Next piece of news, Gulf Cooperation Council. Gulf Cooperation Council, basically External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar signed a MOU with Secretary General of Gulf Cooperation Council on the mechanism of consultations between India and GCC. Basically, there has been a question from GCC in prelims. There can be a question now also, and in mains also it can be there. Basically, Gulf Cooperation Council has 6 member countries. You need to know this. First is Saudi Arabia, which you see here. Second is UAE. Okay. Third is Oman. This is also Oman, a small territory over here. Oman. Okay. Then you have Qatar. Okay. You have Bahrain and Kuwait. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. These 6 countries have formed a multilateral group, just like we have SARC over here or BIMSTEC over here in this region. They have formed Gulf Cooperation Council in their region. Okay. For better cooperation, better region, I would say bargaining with the world, something like this. So they are now establishing contacts with India, and the mechanism of consultations has been decided. The External Affairs Minister was on a 2-day visit to Saudi Arabia from 10 to 12 September in his first trip to the kingdom as India's External Affairs Minister. The Cooperation Council for Arab States of the Gulf, also known as the Gulf Cooperation Council, is a regional intergovernmental political and economic organization. These 6 members are there: Bahrain, Kuwait, Oman, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, UAE. The council's main headquarters is located in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. The charter of GCC was signed on 25 May 1981, formally establishing the institution in that time. So this is about GCC. This is only important, nothing more than that. We need to know the member countries. That is it. Now, price cap on Russian oil by G7. G7 simply means group of 7. Now, if you see through this map, which are the members of group of 7, G7? First is Canada, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. Second is UK. Obviously, the Prime Minister has changed. Can anybody name the Prime Minister of UK?
Boris.
Boris Johnson.
Yes, sir.
Liz Truss.
Liz Truss is the new Prime Minister of UK, sorry. Okay. USA, President Joe Biden. 1, 2, 3. Fourth is France. Fifth is Japan. Sixth is Italy. Seventh is Germany. These are the G7 countries. Apart from these G7 countries, European European nation is a part of G7. Although it is not counted as a member nation because 7 countries are there already. European Union comprises of how many countries? (27). Okay. So these 7 countries plus European Union is G7. Okay. Now what they did was, this war-like situation is created. You all know Russia-Ukraine war is going on. Now, what Russia is doing, Russia has access to a lot of oil and natural gas resources, and it has increased the prices of its oil. Those countries who want to buy oil and natural gas from Russia will have to buy at a rising prices or increased prices. So this G7 grouping signed an agreement among themselves, and this agreement was open to other countries also. This agreement was put for sign for other countries as well, that it is a price cap on oil exports from Russia. They said that we are not debarring you to import oil from Russia. You can import oil from Russia, but you cannot import oil from Russia beyond this limit. Let's suppose $100 per barrel is fixed by G7 countries. So if you are importing oil from Russia, the oil should not go beyond $100 per barrel. It can be below, or maximum it can be $100. Why this price cap deal is there? Because these G7 countries do not want Russia to make windfall profits. And if Russia makes windfall profits, it will definitely fund its war. Okay. So it is like that. So this was the price cap agreement on Russian oil by G7. Now, what is this G7? We'll look into that as well, because questions can be asked from here also. The origin of G7 lies in the oil shocks of 1973. Now, in 1970s, what happened? The equation there in Western Asia. Basically, there is one country, Israel. It is of the Jews. Other countries are Islamic countries like Saudi Arabia, whatever we saw in GCC, UAE, Qatar. These are Islamic countries. Now, Jews and these Islamic countries are not at good terms with each other because of the conflict in Israel-Palestine region. Just to cut short a brief conflict in Israel-Palestine region, this was this region, Israel. I'm just making a rough map. Now, when Industrial Revolution happened in Europe, the Jews fled from this land, their homeland, and went to Europe for taking advantage of the Industrial Revolution. Jews are one of the most skillful people on earth, mind you. And when there was this Second World War coming up, there was increasing atrocities on the Jews, particularly by Hitler. the Jews started returning back to their homeland after 150 to 100 years. There was this call for Zionism. Zionism means return to your homeland. By that time, 150 to 200 years, the Arab Muslims, they had spread themselves over here in this territory because they started believing that this territory is ours now. But when they came back, they displaced them and formed Israel for themselves. Israel was supported by the Western countries, especially USA. So in 1970s, what happened? These Islamic countries, basically, they levied sanctions, trade embargoes on oil. Oil was there in these countries. They said that those countries who are supporting Israel, Israel is our enemy. Those countries who are supporting Israel, we will not supply oil to them. And these were the Western countries, USA and its allies. So these Western countries, USA and its allies, formed this grouping G7 back then. The origin of G7 lies in the oil shocks of 1973. This is the story of oil shocks and corresponding financial crisis. In order to address the situation after oil shocks, the heads of the world's 6 leading industrial nations decided to hold a meeting in 1975. These 6 nations, USA, UK, France, Germany, Japan, and Italy. Hence, these countries were joined in Canada in 1976 and G7 came into existence. In 1998, Russia also was inducted in the group. G7 was formed into G8. But when Russia annexed Crimea in 2014, Russia was expelled from the group and G8 again turned into G7. So presently, G7 members have decided to put a price cap on the Russian import of or the Russian export of oil. This is G7. Canada, France, Germany, Italy, Japan, UK, USA, obviously EU. Not a country, but a bloc which is considered to be a member of G7. G8 is Russia. G20, this G8 plus 12 more countries. Argentina, Australia, Brazil, Chile, European Union is counted over here. India, Indonesia, Mexico, Saudi Arabia, South Africa, South Korea, and Turkey. So in G20, EU is counted as a nation. But in G7, EU is part of G7, but not counted in these 7 countries. This is the catch here. In G8 also, obviously it is a member, but not counted as a member. Okay. The price cap plan. The introduction of a price cap on Russian oil means countries that sign up the policy will only be permitted to purchase Russian oil and petroleum products that are sold at or below the price cap. The price cap is being designed to limit Russia from profiting from its war of aggression while limiting the impact of global energy prices. G7 officials have been trying to convince countries including India, China, and Turkey to join the coalition. As per them, price cap is in the interest of all oil buyers from Russia, as it will give them leverage to lower purchase prices. India is getting a discount of 40% on Russian oil. We were not importing Russian oil before February 2022, but now Russia is a major oil importer to us. The reasons which have been cited by us that why our oil purchase from Russia has increased is simply put by the government as national interest. It will benefit our people. We are doing it for the sustainability of our economy. Why shouldn't we buy cheap prices, oil at cheap prices? If you would be getting, whoever is questioning us, if you would be getting oil at cheap prices, wouldn't you be buying it? Everyone is buying it. Everyone will buy it. And we are doing it for the sake of benefit of our people. Now, India's response to G7 or the Western countries have tried to pressurize India by asking it to change its uncritical stance on Russia at the United Nations, because we are most of the times abstaining from voting or supporting Russia. Then to cut down oil imports from Russia, which we are not going to do because we are getting discounts over there. To stop defense and other purchases from Russia. Russia is the largest arms supplier to us. How can we stop that? And to avoid the rupee ruble payment mechanism, we have come into a rupee ruble payment mechanism with Russia also, that will pay you in rupees. So our dependency on dollar also will reduce. But we can do it up to a certain extent only. But whatever extent we can do it, it is our profit. However, so far, India has not obliged, and there is little indication that New Delhi means India is likely to just yet. India's oil intake from Russia, which was minuscule prior to the war, has soared 50 times, has increased 50 times. India has become the second biggest destination for Russian oil import or export. Indian government stand is believed to be driven by its national interest, which at the moment is to provide affordable oil to Indian consumers. That is why Pakistani Prime Minister keeps on praising India's foreign policy. Pakistan's ex-Prime Minister, if I have to correct myself, Imran Khan. He's of this view that, India's foreign policy is so strong that India has good connections with USA, India has good connections with Russia, India is able to secure cheap oil for its people also. So India is doing whatever it wants to do. Next is India's dairy sector. Now, why was this in news? Because there was this International Dairy Federation World Dairy Summit 2022 in Greater Noida. International Dairy Federation is an international organization which works for the welfare of the dairy sector. It conducted a function or a summit, World Dairy Summit 2022. This was not the first time this summit was conducted. The last summit was conducted in 1974, the World Dairy Summit, 1974, and now in 2022 it has been conducted in Greater Noida. India's dairy sector is characterized by, how is India's dairy sector? Now, 8 crore families are there involved in producing milk. Okay. Production by masses. Prime Minister was delivering a speech in this, I would say, function. He said that India's dairy sector is characterized by production by masses, means many people are involved in producing milk or in milching rather than mass production. Now, just imagine a situation when production by masses and mass production also happens. The amount of milk produced in our country will go up many times. India currently is the largest producer of milk in the world and the largest consumer of milk in the world. The consumption of milk and milk products have gone up in the recent past. Why? Because the incomes of the people have also gone up. Whenever there is rise in income, this is a worldwide phenomenon. Whenever there is rise in incomes, you will see consumption patterns changing. And this is one such change in the consumption pattern, that these products are expensive, a bit expensive as compared to various coarse cereals and all. Okay. So the poor cannot afford it. The poor will take 3 rupees rice, 3 rupees kg rice from NFSA, 2 rupees wheat, 1 rupee kg coarse cereal. It is very difficult for him to afford paneer or even milk. But as and when your incomes start rising, you are consuming more and more of these products. Now, this basically summit, World Dairy Summit, coincided with a time when India's cattle are suffering from a disease called as the lumpy skin disease, LSD. So, in our next news piece, just after India's dairy sector, the next news piece is about lumpy skin disease only. Okay. So I'll be discussing in detail over there. Dairy in India. India is self-sufficient in milk, world's top milk producer as well as consumer. Milk is India's single largest agricultural commodity in terms of value. When I take agricultural commodities, the values of agricultural commodities, the maximum value is generated by milk, and it is a USD $118 billion industry. It has a very rich reservoir of genetic diversity. Now, the larger genetic diversity is, the larger the chances of, producing more and more milk, because you never know which combination of genes produces more milk for you. Well, it can be in the future a new combination of genes will produce, or will be more milk producing for you, and there are very less chances of being extinct when there is genetic diversity. So this is going to sustain.
There is hand back.
Pravalika, please mute yourself. Thank you. Now, the Indian dairy industry is unique because it is based on a cooperative model. Have you heard about this brand called Amul? Can anybody tell me the full form of Amul?
I think it is Anand Milk Limited.
Anand Milk Union Limited. Anand is a place in Gujarat. Now, what happens? There are farmers who have cattle in their homes. Those 8 crore farmers which we talked about, they bring their milk to one place and sell their milk at a predetermined price. Let's suppose they're selling their milk to Amul. What brand do you have in Hyderabad?
Yeah, we have Amul as well. Vijaya is another brand.
Vijaya.
Yeah.
Like, I'll take this example of Vijaya. Okay. The farmers contribute their milk. The local farmers over there, they'll take their milk to the Vijaya factory. Their milk will be processed, it will go through a particular process and all. It will be fermented, and then finally it will be packed in those packets, and those packets you people buy. These farmers will get their money back from Vijaya. Okay. Now, basically, this is a cooperative model in which the farmers have cooperated. Vijaya is acting like a cooperative society where the farmers have pooled in their resources. Resources is the milk, to gain profits. Okay. It provides a stable cash flow to the farmers. Now, just imagine a situation if there is a crop failure. These farmers are also doing agriculture, because they are not only, very seldom it happens that they are only dependent on income from milk. They are doing agriculture, their crop fails. Their income is not stable, but from here, their income is stable. It provides a stable cash flow as compared to crop cultivation. Around 60 to 70% of consumer rupee means, for example, you go to buy milk and you buy milk of rupees 100 Vijaya packets. Okay, let's suppose it is 20 rupees per liter, so you buy for 5 packets. Okay, 5 liters you buy, and you pay 100 rupees to that Vijaya shopkeeper. Okay, out of this 100 rupees, this Vijaya shopkeeper will keep some, and around 60 to 70 rupees will flow back to the farmers. A stable cash flow as compared to crop cultivation, as around 60 to 70% of consumer rupee, means this rupee which you have paid, flows back to the producers. Producers are the farmers, which is the highest in the world. This ratio, 60 to 70%. So it creates an alternate source of earning for the farmers, which is stable. Okay. Achievement of India's dairy sector. The government of India, Ministry of Fisheries, Animal Husbandry and Dairying, has taken multiple steps for the betterment of dairy sector, resulting in an increase in milk production by more than 44% in the last 8 years. This milk production increased due to increase in demand in the last few years. Increase in demand is happening due to increasing rising income levels. The success story of Indian dairy industry, accounting for about 23% of global milk, producing around 210 million tons annually and empowering more than 8 crore dairy farmers. There was a revolution named as White Revolution. Who is considered as the father of White Revolution? What is White Revolution?
Increasing the production of milk.
Increase in the production of milk. Milk is white in color. That is why White Revolution. Who is considered as the father of White Revolution?
Varghese Kurian.
Varghese Kurian. He was a scientist in India who was keen on increasing milk productivity and making India the largest milk producing country of the world, and his dream has come true. That is why we say that White Revolution is a success. Next piece of news: lumpy skin disease. It is basically caused by a virus called as lumpy skin disease virus, which is of Capri pox virus genus. The LSDV mainly affects the cattle. Cattle is a collective term used for cows as well as buffaloes. Okay. How is it spread? LSDV spreads through blood-sucking vectors like ticks and mites, like houseflies, mosquitoes, etc. Let's suppose there is a buffalo. She is infected with LSDV. A mosquito comes, sits on her, sucks her blood, and then goes, then sits on another buffalo. Then the virus is transmitted from here to here. Or it also spreads to contaminated water, fodder, and feed. Now, in their, I would say, where they live, in Hindi we call it tabela, or in English I'm not able to get the name presently, but where they live, it is called as a stable or something like that. Now there is this common, I would say, tray running where the food items are kept, and they stand here to eat. Now if one of them is infected, they will infect the food and fodder, and from there these will get infected. This is how it is spread. How does it impact? LSDV attacks the circulatory system of an animal. It causes inflammation of blood vessels and lesions in various organs like liver, lungs, spleen, lymph nodes, etc. This infection in the blood vessels will cause epidermis. Epidermis is reflected on the skin. There will be small blisters like on the skin, which leads to formation of lumps or nodules on the animal's body. Other symptoms include fever, increased mucus secretion, loss of appetite, etc. So these are the symptoms of lumpy skin disease. Now you can see a cattle which is infected with lumpy skin disease. These are basically the I would say blisters on the skin which are caused. Okay. It results like into this. Can it spread to humans? This is a very big question. Now the good news is that the disease cannot spread among humans. From the animal to the humans, it cannot come. Like COVID-19 came from bats, if it is true, to humans. So lumpy skin disease cannot come. Okay. It cannot be transferred from infected animals to humans. Does it impact the dairy produce? No. What happens if we are consuming the dairy products of a cattle which has been infected by lumpy skin disease virus? Moreover, the reports as of now show that it does not affect the products of the animals, and those products are safe to consume. That virus will not come into our body via the milk products of that particular cattle. Okay. So it is still going on. Keep a watch on this. And on these two fronts, If any development is there, you keep a close watch on it. Now, India on Sri Lanka in UNHRC. Okay. I'll just grab water for myself and then we'll resume. Just give me a minute. Now, basically, UNHRC, what UNHRC is? United Nations Human Rights Council. It is basically an intergovernmental body within the United Nations system, based in Geneva, means headquarters is in Geneva. The council was created in 2006 by United Nations General Assembly. 47 member states are there, which are responsible for promotion and protection of all human rights around the globe. Now, to begin with, what do you mean by human rights? What are human rights? Come on, I want inputs.
They are the basic rights which an individual like needs it, right to freedom of thought, freedom of expression, right to choose any particular religion.
What do these rights ensure? Why does the humans need such rights? Basically, human rights are those rights which are available with the humans so that they can lead a life of dignity. Or these are those rights which enable a person to lead a life of dignity. Basic rights must be lent to an individual. Yes, these are some basic rights, but these are aimed at that humans lead a life of dignity. Now, Sri Lanka is in the UNHRC since long. UNHRC is questioning Sri Lanka since a long time. Why Sri Lanka? Because Sri Lanka was in a state of civil war. From 1983 till 2009. And during the times of war, the human rights are crushed. The human rights are crushed. So, in order to restore the human rights, the government after 2009 in Sri Lanka had to take some special efforts or had to make some special efforts for the people whose human rights were crushed during this civil war period. Now, what was the civil war period and all? We'll just go back to the history of Sri Lanka and we'll look into it. What is the basically these people were Tamilians who, whose human rights were crushed. Okay. Now, what is the Tamil issue in Sri Lanka? We'll quickly discuss. This is Sri Lanka. This is India. Okay. Now, what happened during the British period? Sri Lanka was made a colony of the Britishers. Sri Lanka was inhabited by a community called as Sinhalese. These are Buddhists, basically Hinayan Buddhists. Okay. And a lot of tea, rubber, coffee plantation happens here in Sri Lanka. Okay. These are called as plantation crops. So the Britishers wanted people to work on the farms in Sri Lanka. So they took people from India because India has always been gifted with huge population, which is poor. Okay. They took the Tamilians. To work on the fields over there. 150 years, 200 years, they worked over there. And suddenly in 1948, the Britishers left Sri Lanka because decolonization was happening. At that time, it was known as Ceylon. A Sinhalese citizenship bill was passed. Sinhalese citizenship bill was passed by the Sinhalese because Sinhalese dominated the politics of Sri Lanka. The Sri Lanka now had two communities, Sinhalese and Tamilians, out of which Sinhalese dominated. They passed this Sinhalese citizenship bill. The bill disqualified 11% of population who migrated during British era. This population. In 1954, Nehru-Kotlewala Pact was signed. Nehru-Kotlewala Pact was Nehru agreed to provide citizenship to those disqualified Tamilians who voluntarily wanted Indian citizenship and not to those who were not eligible for Sri Lankan citizenship. It clearly means that Nehruji said, okay, those who have been disqualified, the 11%, and out of those 11%, those who are voluntarily wanting to opt for Indian citizenship, I'll give them. But if you say that I should be giving citizenship to all the 11%, this is not done. So this was Nehru-Kotlewala Pact. Very few people opted for Indian citizenship because no one wants to leave their habitat. 1956, Sinhala Only Act was passed by the Ceylon Parliament, and Sinhala Only Act proclaimed Sinhalese as the national language of Sri Lanka, which was a problem for Tamilians. The Tamilians were feeling discriminated, heavily discriminated. 1964, Shastri-Sirimavo Pact was signed. In the Shastri-Sirimavo Pact, it was decided that 9,75,000 people of Indian origin were to be given Indian citizenship, or will be in discussion, not Indian citizenship, but will be in discussion. They were identified. Out of 9,75,000 people, 5,25,000 had to be given Indian citizenship. 9.75, 5.25 Indian citizenship. 3 lakh were to be given Sri Lankan citizenship. And the remaining 1,50,000, the fate of them was to be decided. India was too slow in granting citizenship to these 5.25 lakh people because India was, reeling or busy with its own problems during that time. He had fought a war with Pakistan in 1965. In 1971, again there was a war with Pakistan. There was a lot of poverty here, so we were very slow in granting citizenship. 1972, the constitution was enacted by Sri Lanka. A new constitution was adopted by Sri Lanka, and which favored the Sinhalese language people. This did not go well with Tamilians. Means the important posts were reserved for Sinhalese only. The Tamilians could not contest for those posts. 1976, LTTE, Liberation Tigers of Tamil Eelam, was formed to fight for the right of Tamilians. 1983-84, the civil war started. That is Tamilians versus the Sinhalese. Sinhalese were in the government. And when people of your territory, of your country, are fighting against the government, this particular state is called as the civil war. When the civilians are fighting with their own government, it is called as civil war. Now, the area claimed by LTT. LTT said that, we do not want to be part of Sri Lanka. We want to be a separate country. And this is our demand. Because in your country, you are not giving us the rights or right to equality. We want a separate country. And this green area which you see is the area claimed by LTT. These were the Tamilians. Now, in 1987, basically, India intervened directly into this conflict because there was rising pressure on the Indian government by the Indian Tamilians that their brothers are suffering there in Sri Lanka. A peace accord was signed between Sri Lanka, government of Sri Lanka, and the Tamilians. This peace accord was known as the 13th Amendment Act. Sri Lanka promised to give autonomous provincial councils. Sri Lanka said that you are not forming a separate country, but you will be as a province in our country only, and you will have certain degree of autonomy with subjects like land, finance, law and order will be given to you. Elam People's Revolutionary Liberation Front. Basically, this is a political organization which was representing the Tamilians. They signed the deal and said that, okay, we will do it. The Sri Lankan government simultaneously called upon the government of India and said that please send us some help so that we can peacefully implement the 13th Amendment Act of the Constitution, the peace treaty. And your forces will also help disarm the Tamil militant forces. So India sent Indian Peacekeeping Force, IPKF, and named it as Operation Pavan. But what happened? LTTE, which was a militant Tamilian organization, they rejected this peace accord. They said that, if this has to be formed, a provincial council has to be formed. The CAO means Chief Administrative Officer of the provincial council will be from LTT, not from Elam People's Revolutionary Liberation Front, because we have fought the war and we deserve this position, CAO. The government of India rejected this, that LTT cannot hold a position of CAO. Now the conflict was between LTT versus IPKF. LTT's top hierarchy was neutralized by IPKF. IPKF was called back in 1989 and it was considered as a failure. The Operation Pavan was failed because Operation Pavan was not able to maintain peace. It was a peacekeeping force. 1991, Rajiv Gandhi was campaigning for his elections and he was assassinated by LTTE cadres. The signal was clear. LTTE believed that IPKF, which was dispatched or sent by Rajiv Gandhi, neutralized our top hierarchy. We will also neutralize their top hierarchy. Government of India. And the Government of India's top hierarchy was the Prime Minister. This is all there in that movie, Madras Cafe. In 2003, Sri Lankan government granted citizenship rights to Tamilians. 2005, Mahinda Rajapaksa becomes the president of Sri Lanka. And finally, in 2009, Sri Lankan army controlled and seized the last area controlled by Tamil Tiger rebels. India became part of rehabilitation and reconstruction. Here, India played a crucial role. And Sri Lanka was taken to UNHRC. A UNHRC intervened in Sri Lanka that since the Tamilians have given up their arms, you have granted citizenship rights to Tamilians also, but you should ensure that this will not happen again. You should give some compensation to the Tamilians for the wartime crimes committed by you. This is the issue why Sri Lanka has been taken to UNHRC. Why Sri Lanka faces heat at UNHRC? Briefly, I have explained you, but over 13 years since the end of Sri Lanka's civil war, it ended in 2009, Survivors continue to demand justice and accountability of the wartime crimes. There are still certain Tamilians who keep on demanding this. It is claimed that during Sri Lankan civil war, tens of thousands of civilians were killed and disappeared. So, this is why they have been taken. And since 2009, India has voted thrice in favor of Sri Lanka. The government of India has believed that Sri Lankan government is working for the betterment of its people. Then, two were critical. 2 times we have been opposing it, and we have abstained twice in 2014 and 2021. And day before yesterday, again, that is 2022, we have abstained. We have not voted in favor of Sri Lanka, neither we have voted against Sri Lanka. This is the update in this. So we need to keep this in mind. However, India had warned government of Sri Lanka that you are not going the right way. You need to improve your methods. Now, next piece of news is with respect to CRISPR technology. What is CRISPR technology? CRISPR technology basically is a gene editing technology in your body. Yes, genome editing. In your body, basically, body is made up of organs. Organs are made up of tissues. Tissues are made up of cells. Cells are made up of, DNA. DNA comprises the genetic material. In that genetic material, if editing is done, that will be replicated and, things can be better. Now, this gene editing technology can be crucial or can be instrumental in curing many genetic diseases or genetic disorders. Genetic diseases or genetic disorders, basically, there are some diseases in humans which are caused due to, disorders in the genetic setup. Now, one such disorder is sickle cell anemia. Sickle cell anemia. Anemia is a condition where there is lack of oxygen. Okay. And sickle cell means the red blood cells in our body. They are responsible for carrying oxygen from one place to the other. Now, in this, disease called sickle cell anemia, the shape of the cell changes into sickle shape. This is the sickle shape. Okay. And, this sickle shaped cell reduces the oxygen carrying capacity. There can be more oxygen carried in this shape, and in this shape, oxygen carried is less, which causes anemia. And it is a genetic disorder. So we can use the CRISPR technology to cure this disease. What is CRISPR technology? CRISPR stands for clustered, regularly interspaced, short palindromic repeats. Okay. Now, what is it? How does it happen? We take out the bad part of the gene. This is basically the infected part of the gene, and replace it with the healthy part of the gene. And this will get replicated and your genetic disease will get resolved. The government of India has said that, to the people that, you implement this particular technology, CRISPR technology, to cure sickle cell anemia, okay, which is a common disease in a lot of individuals in India. So in this way, it can be done. Obviously, the way it is shown in this image, the hand of a doctor is plucking it out. It does not happen. There are some biochemicals which are used to cut the infected part out. Biochemicals will be doing this job. These are also called as bioscissors because they cut the infected part and then a healthy part of the gene is replaced, then that gets replicated and then it cures the disease, basically. Next piece of news is with respect to JIMEX. JIMEX stands for Japan India Maritime Exercise 2022, hosted by Indian Navy, commenced in the Bay of Bengal on 11 September 2022. JIMEX 22 involves two phases. First is exercise at sea and a harbor phase at Vishakhapatnam. The edition is marking the 10th anniversary of JIMEX, means it began in 2012. It also coincides with the 70th anniversary of establishment of diplomatic relations. Can anybody in the class tell me that what is the importance of military exercises or naval exercises? Why are these conducted? No idea. Okay. Basically, if a warlike situation happens and these two countries, the security establishment or security forces of these two countries have to, cooperate with each other and launch an operation on the enemy. So in that situation, the high degree of interoperability should be there. Means these security forces should know each other. These security forces should have a standard operating procedure in place so that they can act accordingly in times of crisis or in times of war. Yes, preparing of war. But there is a geopolitical significance also attached to this. A geopolitical significance is, let's suppose Japan and India are collaborating. This will not be liked by Japan. This will not be liked by China, sorry. So it is giving a signal to China that if any problematic step is taken by you, we both are together and we are doing this exercise. So you better be careful. A signal like this is sent. A geopolitical signal like this is sent. Okay. So here, these are instrumental. And the last piece of news for today is Cheetah reintroduction in India. The Prime Minister of India will soon release 8 cheetahs. He has already released 8 cheetahs, 3 male and 5 female, into the enclosure of Madhya Pradesh's Kuno National Park. Now, UPSC is not going to ask questions in which national park the cheetahs were introduced. If you are lucky enough, then only you'll get such kind of questions. But about cheetahs. Cheetahs is a carnivore, world's fastest land animal. Cheetah plays an important part in the ecosystem. They maintain prey species healthy by killing the weak and old and control the population of prey. Prey means those small animals on which it is feeding or it is hunting. Why a healthy ecological balance is maintained? Because these small animals, the prey of the cheetahs, they depend on the grasslands. So if their population goes on increasing, the small preys, their population goes on increasing, the grasslands will disappear. So they consume these preys who consume grasslands. Okay. So the balance is maintained in such a way that their population is balanced by consumption from the bigger cats like cheetahs and all. Today, cheetah are found only in 9% of their historic range, occurring in a variety of habitats such as savannas in Serengeti, arid mountain ranges in Sahara, hilly desert terrain in Iran. Earlier, let's suppose cheetah was found in 100 acres area. Now it is presently only limited to 9-acre area. Just an example. Namibia has the largest population of cheetahs in the world. That is why the title, the cheetah capital of the world. Currently, cheetahs are listed as vulnerable on the International Union for Conservation list, red list basically. IUCN releases a red list in which it has various categories like vulnerable, endangered, critically endangered, extinct. Okay. These are various categories. Now, depending on the population of a particular species, they are categorized. Let's suppose a species which is quite huge in number. Let's suppose the dogs. They will not be categorized over here. They will be out of this list. Means they are ample in number. Okay. But if their population starts coming down, then they will first be listed over here. Then it further reduces. It will be endangered. If it further reduces, it will be critically endangered. Then it will be extinct finally. Then also it will be out. Now, actually, the cheetahs which have been introduced in India are African cheetahs. But in India, in the past, cheetahs did existed, and those were Asiatic cheetahs. The last of those cheetahs were killed by the Maharaja of Korea. Korea is a place in Jharkhand, Chhattisgarh, somewhere there only, in 1947. And in 1952, finally, it was declared as extinct from India. The same species which was found in India is found in Iran presently. But the question is that why did not we import from Iran? Because Iran has the same species. Why did we import from, Namibia? Does anybody has this answer? Despite the fact that the same species found in Iran, which was existing in India, that is Asiatic cheetah, we did not import from Iran. We imported from Namibia. Namibia is African cheetah. Actually, the cheetahs in Iran are critically endangered. Means they are very less in number. Now just imagine a situation. We are bringing cheetahs from Iran to here. Cheetahs in India also did not grow in numbers, and cheetahs in Iran are already struggling. They also did not grow in number. So these will also be, this will get extinct here in Iran, and this will get extinct in India also. So there was this risk of that these species will be extinct. That is why Asiatic cheetahs have not been brought, African cheetahs have been brought. Now, history of cheetah in India had a very wide distribution in India. They were occurring from north as Punjab to Tamil Nadu. They were also found in. They were found in Gujarat also, Rajasthan, West Bengal. Everywhere they were found in India. Cheetah's habitat was very diverse. Scrub forest, dry grassland, savannas, semi-arid open habitats. In 1952, the cheetah was declared officially extinct in the country. A cheetah reintroduction plan. Discussions to bring back cheetah back to India were initiated in 2009 by Wildlife Trust of India. The recommended sites: Kuno National Park, Kuno Palpur National Park, the full name is, in Madhya Pradesh. Now, among the surveyed sites of central Indian states, KNP means Kuno National Park has been rated as the highest because of its suitable habitat for the African cheetah and its adequate prey base. These were the two reasons why Kuno National Park was chosen. This is also important. It is accessed to be capable of supporting 21 cheetahs. We have now introduced only 8, but Kuno National Park is capable of supporting 21 cheetahs. Kuno also provides the possibility of harboring 4 of India's big cats: the tiger, the lion, the leopard, and the cheetahs. Tiger is there, lion is there from Gir forest in Gujarat. Lions were transported to Kuno National Park 2-3 years ago. Leopards are found there, and cheetahs definitely now are found there. They are known to coexist. Let's see how they coexist. And why cheetahs are being brought from Africa? I've already answered this, but again, the extinct cheetah subspecies of India found in Iran is categorized as critically endangered in Iran. That is why we have not brought it from here. Not possible to source the critically endangered Asiatic cheetah from Iran. India sourced it from Southern Africa, that is from Namibia. Southern African cheetahs, which have been brought, also have highest observed genetic variety. They have a lot of genetic diversity in them and are considered to be, forefathers of the Asiatic cheetah. So they have some connection with Asiatic cheetah as well. Okay. They have been determined to be ancestors of the other cheetah lineages like the Asiatic cheetah. So this is a reintroduction plan of cheetahs. The other day I was reading, probably it was a fake news, that one of the cheetah which has been, female cheetah is pregnant these days. And I don't know whether it is true or not, but since no news channel or no news, I would say social media handle has shown it, I would consider it fake only. But yes, it is important that these cheetah, the population of cheetahs in India grows, and that will be very crucial for us. So any doubts or any questions anyone has, please feel free to ask. No doubt, no questions. Okay, I will be sharing this PDF as well. I'll be sharing it now, and you can go through it and keep those PDFs. Tomorrow we'll be meeting most probably at the same time. We'll be picking up the next PDF for discussion. Okay, and we'll be completing it tomorrow itself. Okay, so see you tomorrow. Yeah. Good night. Bye bye. Take care.